Welcome back to the Inner Beauty School podcast. I am your host, Sarah Drury, and we are talking with one of my favorite people in the world, Coach Colene, and she is an incredible life and business coach, and she helps women live with intention so that they can create success in work and in life. And I cannot wait to bring you the fire that she brought today. We went over marketing, we went over mindset, we went over so many things that were absolute gold. I took notes and we went back and we dissected every piece of it. So there's marketing information in here. There's how to get over fears and doubts and all these different things that this is maybe one of my favorite episodes. So I can't wait for you to listen to it. Please let me know your thoughts and let's just get into it. Welcome to the podcast, Coach Colene.
Hi, Sarah.
So we were just talking a little bit off camera and we decided we're just going to push play. Yep. And just see where we go, see what happens.
Exactly. Well, it's like we'll just flow with it. It'll be fun.
That's right. And see the magic that comes from it.
Exactly. I like what you did there.
So tell us just a little bit about you and just, for our listeners who may not know you, just a little bit, just kind of like a little intro to who is Colene?
Awesome. Well, I'm Colene, and sometimes people call me Coach Colene, and I do life and leadership coaching for women. I love working with women. It's funny because when I first started coaching, and you probably are familiar with this too, you just kind of work with anyone who wants to work with you. And I was working with men and with women, and over the course of a few years, just realized my passion is working with women and helping them get from where they're at to where they want to be. So I worked in HR for several years. I loved doing that. So half of my business is still working with companies to help them create better policies, better procedures, better workplaces. And oftentimes when I go into work with them, I'm working with their leadership team to help them kind of navigate what that means to be a good and effective leader at work. I love yoga. I love tea. I love gummy bears. My husband, he's pretty cool. Justin Timberlake. I mean,
Taylor
that's just
Swift.
kind of me. Yeah. What's that?
Taylor Swift.
Oh, girl. Yeah. T Swift. She's my homegirl. She doesn't know it, but we're besties in my mind.
Well, I was listening to her this morning, the new album, in honor of you being on the podcast today.
I can't get enough of the new album. I'm not even going to lie. I've been doing these morning walks, and it's like fueling my walk every morning.
It's so good. It's so
good. I don't know if you saw my Instagram story, but I had to, I'm putting together a playlist for my event, and I was like, you cannot put the whole album
I
on
did
the
see that.
Yeah.
You're like, nope, don't do it. Don't do the whole album. And I was like, why
but
not?
I can't help because it's so good.
Okay, so kind of just going with the flow.
Yeah.
You kind of also said in those stories that the man from that album, the song The Man, is kind of like a theme song for your conference. So first of all, tell us about what your conference is, because I really want, which it may be sold out. Is it sold out?
It's not. We're like so close to being sold out.
Okay, so it's almost sold out. So listen up. If you want to go to this conference, listen up. And you may do it again, though?
Yeah.
Okay.
So people have been asking about, well, no, it's funny. People have been asking about it already. And I'm like, can I get through this one first?
Right.
It will happen again. It's just figuring out where that might be.
Yeah. So. Okay. So for anybody listening, because this is coming out like today or tomorrow.
Good. Yay.
Tell us a little bit about the conference and then the why and the man is such a big
part. Okay. So the conference is called Empower Her Conference, and it's a women's leadership conference. And this has been like my little dream event for probably 3 years now. And a lot of what was happening was I was getting asked to come and speak at these other women's leadership events, and they were great and wonderful events. But I would get asked to speak on generational differences in the workplace, or can you come in and talk about communication skills, but like in a broad sense, all of which are really great. But I felt like if I'm going to talk to a room full of women, I want to talk about issues that I know women are having in workplaces and as they're kind of stepping into being a leader. And so it was one of those, wouldn't it be kind of cool if I just did it? Like, maybe, like, let's just see what happens. And, fear gets in the way. This has been 3 years in the making, and it was who's going to come? Who do you think you are to do that? Why would anyone want to hear what you say? Why would anyone pay this much money to come? And I decided that this was the year that it was happening, just in a man, we're finishing up a decade, right? Like something about going into 2020, I think really motivated action to happen this year. And so it's happening. And so I interviewed 50 women and asked them what their biggest leadership challenges was. And I listened and I took notes and I looked for trends. And so this event, we're talking about self-care as a leadership tool, not just like a touchy-feely thing. Like this is the legitimate tool that you need to be a better leader. We're talking about learning how to manage your energy instead of just your time. We're talking about
Huge. That is so huge.
it, like,
Oh my
it's
God.
so big, and I feel like there's such a push for time management, which I think is important, but man, you can have all the time in the world, but if you don't have the energy to do things, it doesn't matter how much time you have. So we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about, one of the number one things that women said when I interviewed them, and can I cuss on this podcast? I wasn't sure. It's not like a hard word.
Go for it.
Okay. So the number one thing that women said to me was, how do I communicate effectively without feeling like a bitch? And
Mm.
I thought, wow, like this was some variation of that came up in almost every conversation where they just felt guilty for speaking up or asking for what they needed. So we're going to talk about that. And one of the big things is talking about letting go of that, right? Because it's not your job. It's your job to care, but it's not your job to care more about how you come across versus what it is that you need. And so we're talking about that, and I mean, it's just going to be, I wanted to create this experience where it felt like lunch with your girlfriends, but lunch with a purpose,
Mm.
right? Like it's a casual event. So many times you go to these events and everyone's, dressed up and it feels very, I don't know, plastic. That sounded, I mean, that's from Mean Girls. That's
Oh, I
it's the
love
best
that
way to
movie.
describe it. But, like, I'm wearing jeans, right? Like, I really want it to be a fun event. We have a DJ, we have a mimosa bar, we have a cake and ice cream break, and it's just we're talking about real issues with real women, and I'm so proud of myself, which I feel like we don't tell people that enough, but the amount of work and love and energy and, like, the mental game that I had to go through to get to this point. And so we have like 18 tickets left out of
Mm.
150. We have 18.
Dang, girl.
Yeah, it's been super fun. And I know some of your followers, I think, are business owners too. And I want to just say this because I was telling someone else this the other day. I have not paid for a single piece of advertising for this event, not a single paid ad, nothing.
What?
All yeah. Yeah, 134 tickets out of 150 we
Clapping.
sold. Yeah, from word of mouth, from talking about it on social media, and from email marketing, um, but, like, my own email list. And so, I I for anyone that, like, has a big dream and thinks, "Oh, I'm gonna have to" yes, I do believe that there's a time and a place for paid advertising, and I had actually started conversations with the marketing agency about developing that, but we didn't need to. And so I just feel like when you develop the consistency with your audience, that's a huge thing. But I
Mhm.
also feel like for me, 3 years ago, I would not have been ready to
Mm.
do this event this way, right? And so you have to trust that when the time is right, the time is right.
Yes. Yes. Okay, so you said so many golden nuggets in this, but I kind of want to unpack it a little bit because I love that. First of all, like it's almost shocking to me, and it probably is to other people, that you still have doubts and fears, and you know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
feel like we sometimes think, well, when we get to a certain level, like all of that goes away. And it's like it's so refreshing to hear, someone at your level saying like, nope, that still came up for me and I still had to work through it.
Yeah, and I try to be really transparent about that with people because I do think that it's easy to look at people that are, a step ahead of where you want to be and think they've got it all figured out. And I may have some things figured out, right? But there is still this feeling of, am I going to be good enough? Like that imposter syndrome can really kick in a big way. But that is what happens when you are elevating to that next level. Like part of up leveling is upping this. That's a huge part of it, right? Like, that. And
Yep.
so as you're kind of moving into who you're supposed to be, it's normal to question yourself. It's normal to have a little bit of doubt. All of that's completely normal. The difference is that some people sit in that doubt and allow that doubt to be the definer for them. And then you have some people that are like, all right, we're going to toss it out there and see what happens, right?
Right.
And I've done so many things that haven't worked the way I thought that they were gonna work, right? But that's how you learn, and that's how you get to the point where you're selling 130 tickets via word of mouth, right? So it's all part of the process, but don't let that doubt stop you from doing what you're supposed to be doing on this earth.
Yeah. I love that so much. And I feel like you said, there's some things that you have figured out, and I feel like that's the piece that so many people miss, is that it's not that the doubts and fears aren't still there, it's just
Yeah,
that you have figured out and understood how to manage them and not let them stop you. You realize
yes,
that they're not the truth,
yeah,
that they're the lies that we tell ourselves, and
yeah.
how to continue to put it out there anyway.
Yes. Yeah, it's funny because when I first hired the event planner for this event, I expressed that to her. I said, "There's still a little part of me that's like 7 years old thinking, is anyone gonna come to my birthday party?" You know? Like
Yes, 100%. I 100% get that. And you'll probably get this a little bit too from what I'm experiencing. I'm experiencing that now because you've already done this part, but my book is about to come out.
Yes, I'm so excited.
And we're going to do a book event, and the date keeps getting pushed back, and it keeps not being the right time, and there's this part of me that's like, I mean, who's going to come anyway? Like, why would I even do an event? Like, nobody's going to
Yes, they will. I will be there. Let me know as soon as you get that figured out, by the way. That way I can get it on my calendar.
come. Okay, you're so
Um, but yeah, no, and I mean, and I think I told you this when right before my book came out, 2 weeks before, I was like, let's just scrap it. It's not good enough. I don't want to do this. I don't want to put it out there. Like, what if people see it and they hate it? That is a natural part of the process, right? Because here's
sweet.
how I felt about the book. I felt like social media is like the wild, wild west, right? Like everyone could find you if they wanted to find you. But people kind of tend to stay in their corners. But when you put a book out and it's out there in a very public way, I don't know, Amazon felt like it exposed me to the world. Um, that then it was like, what if the people outside of this little bubble that I've created don't think it's great? Or what if it's not really great? Or what, like all of those things go through your head. Again, it's about making the decision to push through it.
That,
My book came out last year on Halloween, and I was very intentional with that because it was one of the scariest things that I've ever
that,
done. And I remember saying, like, that whole week, the theme was being scared and
oh,
doing things scared, and how when you were
ooh,
younger,
guilt.
you would go trick or treating and you would be scared. You would go through a haunted house and you would be scared, but we've given up the that joy that we get from doing things scared in exchange for what we feel like is safe.
Mm, that like almost put tears in my eyes. It's so true. And the reason that it did is because I'm picturing my son. Like, that's exactly like he loves to hate
Yes.
Halloween.
Yeah, and the thing is, we still love to hate it too, right? Because, like, I'm not doing haunted houses. Like, let's be clear about that. I'm not a haunted house girl, but I love that sense of, I don't know how it's going to work out. But then when you're on the other side of it, you're like, okay, like, we made it. It was great. And I'm glad that I did it. But it's so easy. It's so, so easy to just never allow yourself to get to that point.
Exactly. And then you don't get to experience that other side of it, that exhilarating part
Yes.
of it. And it's like that's part of the joy and fun of life is doing these things that you want to do, and it's like a desire in your heart and pushing through and doing it scared. And then on
Yeah.
the other side of it, you're like, it's like a roller coaster. You're like,
Yep.
oh my gosh, and then your hands are up and your belly drops, and then you're like,
That was awesome. One of my favorite quotes that I keep on my laptop is, "You are not given a dream without the capacity to fulfill it." And so I always remind myself of that, because it's like, maybe it's not going to work out the first time you try it, and that's fine. And maybe it's not going to work out the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 20th time you've tried it. But at some point, if you were given this dream, it will work in some way. It may not work to the full extension that you think it will, but it will work in some way. And that has literally been my mantra for the past probably 8 years now. It's like, I've been given these big dreams for a reason. It's my job to just see them through.
Oh, yes, I love that so much. And I totally agree with that. And this entire year for me has been a year of figuring things out and like
Mhm.
throwing things against a wall to see what's going to stick.
Yep.
There've been so many like failures,
Yeah.
air quote
Yeah.
failures, things that didn't go the way that I wanted them to go, or but it's again, it's about like, are you gonna just give up and just
Yeah.
like lay out and you're just done, or are you just gonna keep going? Because I can even say now I'm kind of on the other side of it where I found a
Yeah.
thing that's really working and that's really making a difference, and it kind of came about in a way I never would have expected, but
Mhm.
just keep on going, just keep
Yep.
on trucking, and and
Yeah, but it's like, think about, for you, what would have happened if you wouldn't have kept throwing the things to see what was going to stick. If you would have, maybe the third time something didn't work out, said, okay, well, that's it, can't do it, which is what so many people do. It takes all of that. That's why I love Marie Forleo's new book, Everything's Figure Outable, because it really is just like, you just got to figure it out. You just got to keep going until you figure it out. No one knows what they're doing. We're all just out here figuring it
that's
out
the
along the
secret of
way.
life that
Yeah.
nobody tells you.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what they're doing.
We're all just figuring it out, and I look back over, the last, now I think 6 years that I've been doing this, the number of workshops that never sold a single ticket, the number of programs that I did that nobody purchased,
Hmm.
the number of products that I created that nobody really wanted. Like, to go from that to this,
Mm.
it's just like, man, I'm glad I stuck with it, but I'm also glad that I believed in my dream so much and I believe in the mission that I have to help women create better work and better lives for themselves, that I was willing to push through it, because what is on the other side is so much like so much more amazing. And then it's like, all right, well, what's next? And that makes you
Mhm.
excited because you know that you can figure it out regardless.
I love that. Okay, so some other things that you were talking about that are more like on a marketing level, but I love that stuff so much too. So I just
Mhm.
kind of briefly want to like mention this because I was like, if y'all are listening to this, you're getting some gold here. So I want to call attention to it so people can see. But so you had the idea,
Mhm.
and then and one, I love that it was like a 3 years in the making, so hopefully people are seeing that. But then you looked around and you were curious and you saw things that were missing, so you
Mhm.
created something that you wanted to see, that you were like, there's a piece missing here.
Yeah.
I've been to all these conferences, but they're not, I would do it differently, I would do it this way, and this would be even more, powerful.
Yep.
So like looking for what's missing, like that's
Mhm.
genius. That's just like, Spanx lady, Sarah,
Yeah.
like that's like inventor level. Like that's what entrepreneurs do. They look around, they figure out what's not working well, and they kind of fill the hole. So I think that's brilliant that you were noticing, you're paying attention and you.
Yeah. And can I say something about that real quick? So, my background is in HR, and I ran this nationally recognized leadership development program where I worked at. And one of the cool things about that, and this is like, I believe that the journey is your journey, and you may not understand why you're where you're at certain times, but at some point it all starts to make sense. So when I got asked to take over this leadership development program, I had never done anything like that before. That was not my field of expertise. I spent 6 months researching other companies' leadership development programs and redesigned a program that I felt like I would want, right? And so that's another, I think, huge thing that I've learned along the way is create what you wish existed.
Mm-hmm.
And so the leadership development program that I ran at my old job was the program that I would have needed for myself. And I knew I wasn't the only one. And it's the same thing with this conference, where it's funny to look back at that that job and that role and how it prepared me for this, to create this, in much of the same way, where I learned how to do the research on what people wanted. I interviewed people, I set up focus groups, I did all of these things to collect the information. And then I asked myself, what would you want at a conference? Like, you go to all these conferences, what do you see missing? What do you wish that they were doing? Uh-oh, did I lose you?
I hear
Hold
you,
on.
but
Okay.
I don't see you. Oh, there
There we are.
you
I
are.
must have accidentally pressed the stop video. Sorry.
Well, that's all
Uh,
right. You're a talker with your hands like I
yeah.
am.
And so it was hearing all of that, but then also just asking myself, like, Colleen, what would you want from a conference? What would make you so happy if you showed up at an event and they did this? And that's how I created this event. Especially, I didn't talk about this before, but the VIP experience for this event, you get headshots done that day, you get a private dinner. It's like all of these things that I'm like, why aren't people doing this? That would be fun,
Totally.
that you are allowed to create. Just
Mm.
because no one's doing it doesn't mean that you
Yourself
can't be the
permission.
person that's doing it.
Writing that down too. Yeah, exactly. So it's about looking for what's missing and then giving yourself permission
Yeah.
to create what you would want. And then I think the other piece here, and this is something that originally when I was creating, my makeup course, I did so much research and
Mhm.
I had 10 years of experience and all of this, kind of like you're saying. Um, and this was something that I was missing, that once I started thinking about it, I was like, okay, I need to go back to the drawing board on this piece. And it was the research. It was the listening and kind of creating focus groups and figuring out what people are struggling with and what
Mhm.
they want. That is something I think that we you want to create what you want to teach, but there's got to be a crossover of
Yeah.
what you want
Yeah.
to do and what people are willing to pay for.
Yes.
And so I think that was another piece of gold that you were putting in there that I was like, wait, we gotta talk about this because I feel like that was a step that I originally, when I was doing, things, I focused in on really hardcore. But then as I'm starting to throw things against the wall, as I'm creating new things, I was like, what am I missing here? And that was it. I was like,
Yeah.
I need to just be like talking to people and figuring out what they want and interviewing and
Yeah.
yeah. So
Well, and then the gold of that is then you can use their language back to them. Like, if you look at the copy for the Empower Conference website, it's words that people told me in the interviews that I wrote down, because I would think of it one way, but that's not the way that they were talking about it.
exactly. Oh
And
yes.
so figuring out, like, what's resonating with them and talking to them like they're actual people,
Yeah, exactly.
I
Like
think
how
really
they
makes
would
a big
talk,
difference.
how they are
Yeah.
talking. Yeah. And then the other thing that you said was this is exactly what I did to create the thing I'm doing now, which was look for the trend. That was the
Mhm.
piece of gold that you just said as well. Like, not only were you doing the research and talking to people and finding their words, but as you were interviewing, there were trends that were popping up. There were the things that people were saying over and over and over
Mhm.
again. And you're like, ding, ding, ding.
Yep. Yeah. Well, because what I would have created would have been a totally different thing, right? If I would have gone just based off of what I felt like people needed to know, it would have been a totally different experience. What I did was say, I know that there's something missing. Here's what I think it is. How does that compare to what they're saying it is?
Mm, that's yeah. And that is that crossover. It's like these are the things that I think and feel in my heart that people need. So it's
Mhm.
like that's one circle. And then the other circle is what are people actually saying and what are they saying that they need?
Yep.
And then where are these two things crossing over and how can I create something so epic that is what I want to do and it's at the center of my core heart desire and also fulfills this need that these people are asking for.
Yeah. Well, and so perfect example, one of the things that came up was like negotiation skills for women, right? Both personally and professionally. And I could talk about that, and I think it's very interesting. That's not my strong suit. So what I did was found someone whose strong suit it is and
Mm,
bringing her in, right? And
beautiful.
so she's coming in to teach a workshop on negotiation skills for women, because that's what people said they needed, right? So of course I can add it to the day along with the things that I do know. You don't have to be the expert in all of the fields to create the thing.
Yes, I love that so much. And that's yeah, it's exactly. Okay, so that goes perfectly back to where we started with the man and Taylor
Yes.
Swift. So
Yes.
because partly the negotiation, but other things like women just like you were talking about, we feel like we're bitches if we show up in a certain way
Mhm.
and yeah, and so like to me, I feel like the song speaks to so many different levels of what it's like to be a woman in business. So
Yes.
you talk a little bit about why you love it.
Yeah. So I heard that song and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I've needed this song like my entire career," right?
Oh,
And so I don't know if I've ever shared this story with you, but I found myself working in HR. I was an investigator of harassment and discrimination complaints for
mm,
several years. And so it was mostly me hearing from women that were being sexually harassed in the workplace, that weren't treated fairly in the workplace, all of these things. So I knew what to do. I knew how to advise other women. I found myself in a position where I found out that a male coworker made $33,000 more a year than I did. doing the same job.
Oh,
We had the same job description. In fact, I was doing duties on his job description that he wasn't
no.
doing that weren't
Oh,
on mine. $33,000 more a year. And that was a huge wake up call for me. And it was huge for several reasons. One, because I recognized that I was the person that said yes to everything to show how valuable I was. Yeah, I can do that. Of course, I can do that. Look how hard I'm working, right? Look how great of a team player I am, and I'm contributing. But what it did was it allowed people to take advantage of that, and it allowed myself to discredit the value that I was bringing to the workplace. And
mm,
so, and it's funny because I remember when I found that out, I had a meeting with my two male bosses and told them, "Hey, this is a problem." And they kept saying things like, "Well, do you wanna go to more training? Is it that you just need more training?" I was like, "No, it's not fair that he makes $33,000 more a year than I do." "Well, are you just stressed? Do you need some time off?" "No, we're having this meeting because it's not fair that he makes $33,000 more a year than I do." And I will say, I always wanna make sure that I clarify this. That coworker was an amazing advocate of mine, and he pushed for us to get equal pay as well. Like,
that's
it
all.
was not the coworker that was the issue.
Right.
And he's still a big supporter of me. So I always want to clarify that.
Yeah.
But so hearing that song and thinking about my own experience with that and thinking about the conference, it really became this like theme song for the conference because I feel like so much of the messaging for women in leadership is just act like a man
Mm,
and you'll be successful. And my big thing is I don't wanna be a man. I don't wanna act like a man, I wanna act like Colleen, and
yeah.
I wanna be successful acting like the best version of myself.
Mhm.
And so part of what I wanted to do with this event is give women the permission to show up as a woman and still be successful, and let them know that you don't have to change who you are to fit some model of what someone else says a leader is. There are so many ways that you can lead that don't involve being this ultra masculine identification of what we default to sometimes when it comes to being a leader.
Yeah. I love that. Um, and one thing that kind of like caught my attention with the song and with women in businesses, it's like I don't want to show up as a man either. Like I want to exactly what you said, but there is this thing that it's like if when you look at the way that men do show up, they don't think some of the same things
Mhm.
that we think. They don't hold themselves back in the same way. Not that they don't have their own unique experience of doubt and fear and all that, of course, but um a lot of times, like there's that statistic, I'm sure you heard this, that I think it's like if a woman and a man were both going to apply for the same job, if
Yep.
a woman feels like she has to have like what 50% of
No,
the
no, no. So the woman feels like she has to have 80 to 85% of the job qualifications. A
and
perfect match, right? And for a man, it's more like 30%.
yeah, okay,
So women are just discrediting themselves from opportunities before they even get to those opportunities
right,
because so many women tend to be perfectionists that we're like, if I don't meet 100% of the criteria, I'm not going to put myself out there.
yeah,
Where guys will just be like, I could probably do that. Like I use my husband as an example sometimes because he is so big on, I can just figure it out. And I'm like, you've never done carpentry work before. Why are you trying to figure out how to put down floors? And he's like, I got it. I could just figure it out. Where women just don't do that. And so I do want to clarify because I'm glad that you said that. It's not that I want women to not take on some of those
right,
traits, right?
exactly,
Because my big thing for this event is helping women speak up, step up, and show up in bigger ways.
yes,
I think what I've meant by I don't want to be a man is really like I don't want to have to be someone that I'm not. I just want to be confident in who I am
yes,
and being confident that if I speak up, I'm speaking up because I can.
Exactly. And feminine energy, like if we're talking about like feminine, masculine, like feminine energy is super powerful when we're
Yes.
really fully in our power. And so
Yeah.
it's both things. It's showing up as you are, like a woman in your feminine energy, but also we can show up and not have to like hide who we are or shy away from opportunities. So
Yep.
it's both of those things. And yeah. And that's why I love that song so much too, I feel like, especially Taylor Swift, she's pretty
She's a
feminine
boss.
in her, yeah, in
Yeah.
her feminine power a lot, but she also shows up really powerfully. And
Yes.
feminine energy is really powerful. I think that
Yes.
like sometimes we think feminine energy is soft and sweet, and it can be,
No.
there can be
Yeah.
some softness to it, but it's also very powerful energy.
Well, and one of the things that I do when I go into workplaces and really try to help them create a pipeline for women to move into leadership positions is show them the research that says, hey, in the future, the traits that women bring to workplaces are what people will expect from leaders and managers.
Mm,
Things like being more collaborative, things like listening, things like thinking things through before I have a response. All of those things that tend to be more feminine traits, that's what the workplace is going to be trending towards with the way that millennials were raised, the way that the generation after millennials are being raised. That's what they're going to be looking for in their workplaces. And so for me, I'm like, if you don't hear the the need for it beyond like a moral imperative, there's a business imperative for it,
mm,
right? Be
yeah.
prepared, because if you fall behind, it's harder to get caught up.
Yep. Yeah. I love that. That's awesome. Well, this is amazing. Is there anything that you would like to share to kind of wrap us up, and anything that we left out that you wanted to touch on?
Let's see. Um, I think probably one of the biggest things is just to remind people that you are in charge of your own life.
Mm,
I feel like we forget that so often, and we think that we are a product of circumstances. And, the actual name of my business is Be More Consulting, because I believe that we all have the capacity to be more than the circumstances that we were given. And I just feel like if we were reminded of that on a daily basis, that like we are not our circumstances, we are so much more than that, and really like lived into that, I just feel like it would transform who you are as a person.
yes, that is so beautiful. I 1000% agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is amazing. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing so openly and giving all of this gold away for free. And
You're so
like
welcome.
in my mind, I'm like, okay, if you're giving all of this away for free, what is going to be in your conference? Like that's going to be freaking epic. And I
So
also just
fun.
want to say for the record that if I were not out of town, you would have one. You yeah. I but I'm
I feel
unfortunately,
like
so
also,
I need you to
Sarah,
do it again too.
we forgot to tell people that like we actually do know each other in real life.
Yes, we do know
Yeah.
each other. I told people on the gram, I told Instagram, my friend Colleen, yes, we are friends in real
Yes.
life, and I
In real life.
adore you.
You too. And just I'm so proud of like seeing you and all of the things that you're doing. And like y'all, Sarah was my favorite hair and makeup person. I say was because I'm like, that is a different life. Um, and it's while it's sad for me because she was so awesome at that too. I'm so proud of you, and like, man, like stepping into who you're supposed to be in such a big way, and your book and all of the things that you're doing. I'm just can could not be more proud of you.
So what, thank you. And one last thing that I want to say is that it was at your event that I was at, was it 2 years ago?
2 years ago, yeah.
2 years ago that I was like, I got to figure this out. Like, I'm not in the space that I'm supposed to be in. And I was so like,
I remember,
uncomfortable.
I remember you struggling with even the courage to say, like, this isn't who I am anymore,
Yeah,
because that's just who you identified with at the time. And
exactly.
so, and that's why I say, like, I'm so proud of you, because I know what it took for you to make that transition happen. And
Literally
it was
were there
scary.
at the moment of me being like, I can't do this anymore, but I don't know how to like not do
Yeah.
this. And so I want to say thank you to you for holding space for me to be able to be uncomfortable and figure it out. And
Yeah. I mean, that you are the testament to, like, just living into the purpose that you have and not being defined by a role or circumstance or what you used to be. You can create who you want to be at any time.
yes, love it and love
So,
you.
I love you too.
Thank you so much
Yes.
for being here.
Thanks, Sarah.